Commission to order. I see that we're being,
Yes, there's a quorum, I think.
we do have a quorum. As is customary, let's open with a moment of silence, acknowledging that this may be the last time that the City of Charleston Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission meets under the current authorizing ordinance. Let's reflect on the work that we have done, the work that is to be done, and the challenges facing the city. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Jasmine or Adrian, is anybody signed up for public comment?
Not online, no.
All right.
Any
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? If so, we open the microphone. We'd ask that you limit your comments to items on the agenda or things that are of concern to you. I see no one coming to the microphone. Let's move on to approval of the minutes of the November 13th meeting.
I'll move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Move. Is there second?
Yep.
Moved and properly seconded. I anticipate there any corrections, notations can be sent to the clerk and the manager if necessary. All those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted with necessary corrections, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. So ordered. Co-chairman, you have any comments at this time? Stephen?
Well, I think most of the people in the room were at the community development meeting where they addressed the amended version of the ordinance that I think y'all received. They passed it out of committee, so it's different than the language that we approved for first reading at our meeting, I guess last Tuesday, and it's a little. I think it's a little bit broader. The mayor mentioned several times during the meeting that he thinks it sort of aligns the language with what we've been focusing on as we've sort of gotten into more things, more issues that are sort of disconnected from the the original special commission report and all that, into kind of broader issues affecting the city that have kind of aligned with our charge. So homelessness, affordable housing, we know the things, but so anyway, there was not the discussion that I expected, and I think that Carol will raise tonight. But what will go to the city council right now is the language that y'all got that will keep a human affairs commission just in a slightly different form.
Okay, so since that's an action item for later discussion, we'll pick that up. Anything else?
Nope, nothing for me. Hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving and hasn't had to go to as many Christmas parties.
My comments are apologizing for not being in the room, and should this be the last time that we meet under the current ordinance, I want to express my appreciation for all the hard work that each of you have done, and the growth that the commission has experienced and its work. Adrian, you circulated your manager's report. Is there anything else Any additional information you'd like to share with us before we move into old business?
No, we can move to old business. I've already circulated the manager's report. The only highlight I would like to give is the history and culture. There will be the dedication of the Anson Street African Burial Memorial that will be happening Sunday at 2 p.m. But I circulated that.
Okay. And commissioners have any questions for the manager's report? Seeing none, we'll move on to items of old business.
Mr.
Let's
Chair,
Yes,
this is Carol. I'm hoping that you could agree we can reorder the old business items. I'm interested in seeing the HARC ordinance discussed at the end of this old business topic agenda. I thought that Alvin Johnson was going to be able to be with us for like the first 30 minutes of our meeting. I don't see him on the Zoom, right?
I don't see him either.
But if he comes, could we move the unhoused rapid housing, affordable housing topic to the beginning, please? So have that first and then the HARC ordinance last.
Well, we'll accommodate Alvin when he pops in. And with that in mind, let's proceed to the Common Street Commons project at our, did I miss doing the minute? No, we did the minutes. In our last meeting, we discussed the project, updated that the History Commission had passed a resolution and was not proceeding with a combined statement with us and asked Bonnie to draft one, which she has. I believe it was circulated previously. There's been several drafts. Bonnie, you want to walk us through the presentation?
Sure, thanks, Jerry. So here is the current state of the Protect and Respect the Bodies resolution. The College of Charleston wishes to build student housing on an ancient burial ground at 106 Cumming Street and parts of 99 St. Philip Street. We had talked about maybe reading the whole thing into the record, but for the sake of time, should I summarize or should I go ahead and read it?
We submitted it to the clerk. We request that the full statement be attached to the minutes. And then go ahead and summarize.
Okay, thank you. We, in general, state law requires that if bodies are going to be moved, that descendants are contacted and agree. Of course, the people in this burial ground were often enslaved or poor or visitors, and their descendants are unknown. And so we would like for some Charleston residents to basically serve that purpose of making sure that the bodies are treated with the respect that they were not treated with when they were in their lifetimes. The city has an opportunity to allow the descendants of the people buried there to speak for them when they were voiceless. So many of the descendants are probably living in Charleston, and we are requesting of the city that they require any applicant seeking removal of human remains to demonstrate that they've obtained informed consent from the descendant community before determining the action of moving the bodies necessary and expedient, that descendants and community members, including the College of Charleston's Community Engagement Council, along with the Protect and Respect the Bodies Coalition, should direct the study of the remains and related cultural artifacts, and that human remains are not removed until a specific plan for scientific study of the remains and artifacts and the proper reinterment is planned and funded, with an agreed upon reinterment plot secured.
So you're presenting that as a proposed statement by HARC to be submitted to the city council.
Correct.
Are there questions?
Do we need a
Comments?
motion particular to that?
Yes, please. Thank you.
direction?
I move that we adopt the protect and the respect the body's HARC resolution to forward to city council.
I
Is there
second.
a second?
I second.
Moved and second. Discussion?
I just thank Bonnie for representing us, especially with the History Commission. And I do hope that the city council will, appreciate the body of work that's been done on this by their official appointed entities as commissions, and also the influx and groundswell of citizens who have poured themselves out during this season of understanding and future deliberations.
Other comments? Questions? I would share with the commission that the college has appointed the Community Engagement Council. The next meeting of that council is January 8th. And it will be held at the Riley Center on Lockwood Avenue at 6 p.m. It is open to the public. There's also a website. And Adrian, if you could communicate with Lachey Aubry of the Ancestry Burial Ground, who's one of the co-facilitators for that project, to distribute that information to that website information to the commissioners. Also, Monday evening, Professor Michael Blakey, who was the archaeologist of record or archaeological director for the New York City African American Burial Grounds, made a presentation at a forum presented by the Historic Preservation Commission, Historic Preservation Council, and that was recorded and should be up on their website should you want additional information coming forward. Is there any unreadiness on the resolution? If not, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
I'm
Steven?
gonna abstain like I normally do when we're
Okay, all right.
making
Thank you.
resolutions ourselves. Thanks.
I got you.
So is that
Moving
a
on-
majority? Clerk? Okay.
I'm sorry, say again?
I was just asking about the vote. Is that a majority? Yes?
Yes.
Well, let's have a head count, okay? Brandon,
Aye.
Bob,
Abstain.
Carol,
Yes.
Jackson,
Aye.
Carol Fry,
Aye.
Tom Orff,
Aye.
Bonnie,
Aye.
Jerry Harris, aye. Stephen?
I'll abstain.
Abstains. Okay, I believe we have a majority in the affirmative, for the motion carries. I should have also noted that the History Commission at its last meeting voted to request that City Council have an information item on an upcoming agenda. Stephen, I think it would make sense if you could watch the agenda and make certain that when that presentation is made, the History Commission's resolution is presented, that the HARC resolution is also presented at that time. That make sense?
For sure.
Okay. and you're making that a request. Okay, moving on to youth initiatives. We've heard at the last meeting, which was actually a discussion around youth, but also information around homelessness as related to Charleston County School District. In our conversations so far regarding youth initiatives, suggestions such as the city updating or creating or recreating or rebooting a youth master plan. It was one concern. And in addition to that, continued review and update on what is happening with the juvenile ordinance. Those, I think, were two particular items. Are there any specific actions or recommendations from commissioners at this time?
Mr. Chair, this is Carol. I do think that we need to reprise the resolution that we presented to council in June. And in particular, at that point, we were asking them to, run the curfew over the summer and then have a review at the end of that timeframe. So that obviously has passed us by. But the last part of that recommendation went into great detail about authorizing the city's Youth Advisory Council to be the sounding board and I'm the innovator for things that can be done in response to the curfew. I think that what we heard on our youth support panel last month was very encouraging in all of the groups that are behind programming for our youth. So I would like to reprise that particular document. I don't think we need to revise it. Let's just send it forward and send it to the council and the mayor's office and the CPD and all the other city departments that have anything to do with youth programming, and hope that they do pay attention to using the appointed youth council as the sounding board for their decisions and changes in the future. So I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Any discussion for clarification? Again, any additional comment or question for clarification? Are we ready for the vote? Seeing no declining. All those in favor of resubmitting the June resolution concerning youth initiatives, particularly the curfew, and requesting that the Mayor's Youth Council be engaged as a primary vehicle for generating ideas and recommendations for youth-related initiatives. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Stevens abstaining. So ordered. That motion carries. Okay, going on to public safety.
Wait, you haven't left youth initiatives yet, sir.
Okay. Are there other actions in youth initiatives?
Is this the time for the homeless students?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The city of Charleston is way behind in helping the crisis of homeless students. Over 600 children in the Charleston County School District are homeless. This includes at least 80 homeless students in the city of Charleston. I've met with the homeless programs administrator at CCSD headquarters. There's also an estimate of several hundred more students yet to be identified in the CCSD that are homeless. As a retired public school teacher, I find it disappointing, to say the least, that the mayor and some members of city council have not been more helpful and visibly proactive to be involved in the current situation. And if they are involved, it hasn't been enough. We had a homeless panel a month or so ago that brought to light the seriousness of the homeless situation in Charleston and Charleston County. To that end, and to resolve my concerns, I'd like to make a motion that HARC adopt a resolution to the mayor and city council to direct the logical city departments to create and implement an action plan to help CCSD best serve their homeless students and families.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, Jerry, this is Carol Fry. Tom, is the Charleston County, what is the Charleston County School District doing?
The Charleston County School District has two women that are working essentially around the clock, going to the different schools to find and identify the students. There are programs during school, after school, to help these homeless children and their families. Some of these families, for instance, might go in with 3 or 4 other families and rent a house and everybody crowd in there. Now, they're considered homeless. There's just a terrible crisis, to answer your question, Carol, and they are working, but they are understaffed as well.
Okay. Tom, are there specifics that are in this recommendation that you would make to the city council? Or just do more?
Let me read it again for you, Carol.
Okay.
To direct the logical city departments, maybe you know that better than I do, Carol, to create and implement an action plan to help the Charleston County School District best serve their homeless students and families.
No, I'm not sure which department, in the city government would necessarily be the one that would be the target of saying, well, you need to do more to help the school district with homeless students.
Well, this is for the city to figure out. We know there's a huge problem and it's been ignored, Carol.
Okay. All right. I know that. I have a family member that works as one of in the data system. And, I was really surprised recently to learn that, the major language at least one school for non-English speakers as their primary language, was Russian. But, I guess that's getting away from homelessness. That basically is just talking about, the true issue that the school district is facing, relative to serving all the students that go to our schools. Okay, thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. That helps.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah,
So-
from my studies and talking to the school district people, there's families living in cars, there's families living in tents. My major problem with the city is they haven't addressed this. We had a wonderful panel a month ago that, that each person who deals with the homeless, lack of housing, lack of food, and I just feel like the city has ignored this wonderful panel that we put together.
If I understand the essence of the resolution is to ask the city departments that are active in this area. I think logically the Mayor's Office of Family and Children is one, and I believe the Homeless Services unit is attached to the police department. So minimally, those two should be engaged through your resolution and how they coordinate with and work with the Charleston County School District regarding the unhoused children in the district minimally. Any other discussion? Any unreadiness on this proposal?
Tom, I had a question. I mean, you've talked with the folks at the Charleston County School District, but do we have any idea of the percentage or the proportion or the numbers that are city of Charleston as opposed to the whole school district?
Well, I did mention that it includes at least, and these numbers vary from what I found out. You know, it might be, I was told that there's 80 homeless students in the city of Charleston schools. Now, they also know the people in charge coming up with the numbers and counting that this is most likely undercounting because the families will hide it. You know, they might move in with a couple families in a house, and so they're saying they're not homeless. And this is one thing that the ladies that I've met with at Charleston County Schools have told me that, you know, it's probably undercounted.
I mean, you're not going to see tent cities in the peninsula, but City of Charleston now goes out to UG essentially, which is about Highway 41. So Daniel Island and beyond. So yeah, it's easy that you could have people out that way.
Additional questions, comments? And then vote on the motion as proposed by Tom. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Abstain.
No, motion passes. Alvin hasn't appeared yet, Carol, so why don't let's go to public safety, then we'll come back to housing before going to the HARC ordinance. In the past 4 or 5 months, there's been discussion around the issue of First Amendment ordinances, modification, amendment, and the like. Again, during the last legislative cycle, we acted and recommended that the city endorse the proposed state adoption of the state hate crime ordinance. Is there any recommended action on either of those? Anyone?
I can speak on the First Amendment ordinance. I'd like to put forth a resolution. City Council adopted the First Amendment demonstration section of the Code of the City of Charleston in July of 2021 in the aftermath of protests regarding Jamal Sutherland's death in Al Cannon Detention Center, and they did so without public comment. While the ordinance reflects the police department's stated priority of maintaining public safety, it fails to adequately address and balance residents' First Amendment rights. Nowhere in the history of the United States, nor in the US or South Carolina constitutions are convenience or tranquility elevated above constitutional freedoms. I think there are two main problems with the ordinance. The first one is it unduly restricts First Amendment rights. In the process, the police review the permit request, but there's no advocate for the constitutional rights of Charleston residents. Once an organizer applies for a permit, there's no way to negotiate or even discuss the process with the police. Instead, law enforcement may deny the permit or unilaterally impose changes to location, time, or date. Although the ordinance technically allows an organizer to appeal a denial of a permit, the only designated venue is the Public Safety Committee, which meets monthly. Because protests are often organized within a few days or weeks, not months, this structure functions as a de facto denial of meaningful appeal, meaning that applicants cannot defend their rights when permits are denied, altered, or revoked. There are numerous provisions in the ordinance that also invite arbitrary enforcement. The most important one is the requirement in the ordinance that protesters march in single file. Nobody marches single file. They don't go single file when they're going out to lunch with their friends. And so basically in every single protest, if the police wanted to, they could declare the march illegal and start arresting people. There are also other restrictions like mandatory crowd size estimates, prohibitions of sitting on public structures, and bans on limited stationary demonstrations that don't serve a clear safety function and also suppress lawful assembly. So if any of these minor things are violated by protesters, then the police can declare the assembly unlawful. And once the permit is revoked, officers may disperse protesters, even if the underlying infraction is minor or disputed. The second major problem with the ordinance is that it enables differential and inequitable enforcement. Charlestonians report that enforcement has been inconsistent and at times discriminatory on the basis of viewpoint and race. There's a petition out there to City Council currently with, I think, about 1,500 signatures. Furthermore, the blanket prohibition on tents, tables, or chairs disadvantages disabled residents and others who require shade or seating in extreme weather. Although it's not codified into the ordinance, police have negotiated accommodations with organizers who insist that they'll proceed without permits. Because these negotiations occur outside a transparent legal framework, the discretion favors those with the knowledge, privilege, and resources to risk arrest, including 30 days in jail and fines of up to $500. Those without such resources are then chilled from exercising their constitutional rights. Existing city ordinances already provide mechanisms to address unlawful conduct during protests without preemptively restricting lawful assembly. HARC therefore recommends that City Council repeal Article 3, Chapter 25 of the Charleston City Code concerning First Amendment demonstrations.
Are you moving that?
I move that we accept this resolution.
Is there a second for purposes of discussion?
Second.
Moved and properly second. Discussions on the motion.
Just a question about one of the points that you raised, the single file line. Is that written into the ordinance, or does that apply to people who don't have a permit and have less than the number of people required for a permit?
I think that's a legal question that I can't answer, but my understanding is that the ordinance basically applies to gatherings even when there's no permit, and therefore it might very well apply to gatherings of under 25.
Okay.
I have a question.
But it definitely applies to the people who have a permit.
Tom?
Does this come from council the mayor, the police chief. I'm sorry, who did this come from?
Who did the ordinance come from?
Yes.
The city council passed it in July of 2021 after there was some unrest in Charleston.
Was the police chief involved?
I'm sure.
I would think.
I mean, the ordinance is very good at making sure protesters and people in the city are safe and are not inconvenienced. And it seems to be the main purpose of the ordinance.
And was the mayor involved? If you had to say?
I don't know the answer to that.
The mayor definitely had a vote. My recollection, and I haven't gone back to the minutes when this ordinance was adopted. Like I've said in earlier meetings, when I took the vote as a seated elected council member in that year, we had had any number of emergency measures that were passed during the season of first COVID. Well, COVID was ongoing that whole time. And then after the, let's just call them the George Floyd unrest and protests that happened in May and early June of 2020. So I'm on record having said this earlier that I would have, if somebody had asked me a year ago, I would have said without a doubt that this was a temporary measure amendment or ordinance, but it turns out it was adopted as a permanent ordinance. And my recollection at that time is it was pretty much in direct response to the regular ongoing occurrence of what we all called the flaggers who were standing on the Confederate monument down at the Battery, and the group that had formed in opposition to their, protest cause of supporting the Confederacy. And those contests have become increasingly contentious back and forth across the street that frames the Battery. And so that was the encouragement of the police chief and the officers who were stationed, in that location every Sunday, all Sunday, that we have this kind of ordinance that limited the numbers and required the permits. So yes, I think, in that time frame, the chief of police, who's now since left us to depart, Luther Reynolds and Mayor Tecklenburg were all promoting the adoption of this ordinance. I guess, Bonnie, I might suggest that because we're not really students of the ordinance in the same way that you are, that we might amend our recommendation and not ask the city council to outright appeal Article 3, but to give it a thorough review in another month when we have a new council who, a few of whom are, on record during the time they were running for election, that they think that 5 years later, this entire ordinance deserves a very thorough review and a set of, detailed questions and answers for why we would continue to have an ordinance that is this strict and exacting. So that would be my only request of you, is that we amend our recommendation. So I think we could get a majority vote here tonight, but I'm happy to vote for it as you have it if you don't want to amend it.
Bonnie, as a maker of the motion, would you accept that?
I will.
And whoever seconded, will you accept that?
Can I ask a question about the amendment?
Yes.
Is it,
Well, before, I want to make sure I've got a second. Tom
Second,
did second? I mean, whoever made the second. Okay. Question on the amendment. Go ahead.
there's a recommendation at the end of this, but there's a preamble that includes a lot of statements about the ordinance. would we be able to vote on the recommendation without necessarily agreeing with every piece of the preamble, I guess, is my question. And I ask this because I know I've talked with law enforcement in the city about this issue, and I actually remember a supplemental fact about this, the creation of this ordinance. At those protests, there were extremists showing up with brandishing long guns, and it seemed like a tinderbox at the time that there would surely be violence if law enforcement didn't have some extra tools in their toolbox. And this was also right around COVID too, so I think crowd size was a concern for public health. So I would absolutely support reviewing this ordinance, and I would feel a lot more comfortable if I didn't also feel like we we're characterizing the Charleston Police Department in any particular way in terms of denying people rights or unfairly enforcing the ordinance. And not to say that that's never happened, but I think I would feel a lot more comfortable just voting on the recommendation to review the ordinance, because I do think, to your point, it did seem at the time like a temporary restriction, especially in terms of those sizes that were referenced. And I would like to see, in a fair world, some of this reviewed with also some research into what other cities have done in the aftermath of 2020. Not immediately, but since then, and whether we have a comparable city that we can look at where an ordinance has worked in a way that both is supported by the activists in the city and the city officials, although that might be a world that doesn't exist. So I would feel comfortable voting for a recommendation to review the ordinance if that was the motion.
Yeah, and I think we should, use the word rigorous or thorough or, detailed review. I mean, I don't want it to be a cursory, yeah, we reviewed it, we like it. I do think that every aspect of the ordinance needs to be carefully studied. I mean, maybe it's a matter of looking at the history of when it's been used, because, I think we're in a season now where citizens are wanting to exercise their rights of public assembly under the First Amendment constitutional law. And my guess is after COVID and after sort of the die out of this, ongoing brandishing of weapons, threatening situation on the Battery that doesn't seem to, hold any weight any longer, there's probably been very little use of this exact permitting ordinance. So I think that would be instructional for the council that will be seated in January, and anything that we can do to help ease off what seems like a very punitive is too strong a word, but it does seem like it's overreach of making sure that we're limiting the numbers of people who can show their First Amendment determinations in a public realm. So that would.
So what I hear was almost an amendment to the amendment, was a passing a resolution, the portion of the requesting the rigorous review, without the preceding whereases.
Sure.
Bonnie, is
But that being said, please feel free to absolutely slam the door in my face. I don't have to vote for the ordinance for it to pass, or for the resolution for it to pass, and I want you to stay true to what you think is the right thing to do.
I'm going to just push back a little bit on the idea that we're kind of accusing the police of anything. And correct me if I'm wrong, but one part of it is Charlestonians report that enforcement has been inconsistent and at times discriminatory. That's in the petition. I don't think that means that HARC is saying that necessarily, just reflecting public opinion. And that, provisions in the ordinance invite arbitrary enforcement, not that enforcement has been arbitrary. I don't think we have that data. And so if you'll just take a look again and see if you can point out anything that,
Um, uh,
Carol,
this
Fry?
Carol Fry, yeah. I, I feel very similar to, what Brandon has expressed. To me, the very highest priority of any of our government is to, the safety of citizens. And, when I first read this over, I get the feeling of, gee, you're being heavy handed and you're not really letting people, express their views. And, if there was no ability at all to have any protest or give your opinions, that might be one thing. But to me, it sounds, just a little too accusatory, and I can't support it in its current form.
So commissioners, we've had discussion. We've got a motion on the floor. The maker of the motion is not prepared to accept an additional amendment. So let's vote on this, and then we can proceed. If there's another motion after that, should this not prevail, for the resolution to go forward.
So can you clarify, what are we voting on?
The original, the resolution,
document.
the document.
it's not an adequate, I am willing to accept if we wanted to only vote on the conclusion, that we can do that. I don't know whether to do that within this vote or,
If you're prepared to accept that, we can vote on it as is, just a
Yeah.
conclusion.
Let's just vote on the conclusion, and then we can, authorize Bonnie to create a set of parameters or background whereases, because this really isn't written as a whereas document anyway, so it doesn't have to be part of an official recommendation resolution.
I
That's
think.
fine if that's acceptable to her, and the commissioners. Are we clear, that what the vote is on to recommend a rigorous review of the ordinance?
Can I just read you the language for that so that it's done?
Yes?
Okay. Hark recommends that City Council review Article 3, Chapter 25 of the Charleston City Code concerning First Amendment demonstrations in conjunction with community activists and other stakeholders.
Can we add law enforcement to that? City law enforcement or public safety professionals or?
Yes. I mean, I was kind of assuming
Oh, fair enough.
but okay, in conjunction with public safety, community activists and other stakeholders.
Everyone clear on the proposal? Is there any additional unreadiness? If not, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Okay, First Amendment. I had raised, and because on several occasions, Brandon had raised the hate crime ordinance being actually hate. It should read hate crime, the city's hate crime ordinance. But there's also state legislation that has been out there. Brandon, you have any recommendation in that area?
So, I think this was added in suggestion that we recommend to city council to create a resolution in support of the state hate crime legislation as we did last year. I'll note we're in the same legislative session, but if my fellow commissioners want to move forward with that recommendation, as there's a new council taking their seats, I would motion that we ask city council to express their support for state hate crime legislation, I'll just add that our Attorney General and others have noted that local ordinances don't do quite enough to address hate and hate crimes. And at our county council, just a couple months ago, it was suggested that they pass a county ordinance, and upon closer inspection, their county code didn't have any applicable crime. So an enhancement wouldn't have worked because in the county code, there's no crime of assault, there's no crime of vandalism or harassment. And I think even though we have a great ordinance in the city, I think it's recognized that that ordinance can't be used to charge somebody with a crime that would result in more than a 30-day jail sentence or like a $500 crime. And I think when in the city where the Mother Emanuel Church shooting happened, and where countless other acts of racial terror have happened, I think we ought to be the first and continually affirm that our state should be doing as much as they can to address hate. And as one of 2 states in the country, again, without any kind of hate crime legislation on the books, I would motion that we ask City Council to again compel or request that the state pass appropriate legislation to add to their code to address hate crime, South Carolina.
Can I make
Is there a
comment?
second?
Can I make a comment?
You have to second.
Pardon me.
I'll second.
Move second. Comments? Thomas?
When I was recovering from surgery back in November, I was watching one day noon news, and this got me to look into the city of Charleston has a hate crime ordinance that was put down in writing in 2018, and it's never been used. And they had the
That's inaccurate.
pardon me.
I just want to note that it has been charged.
It has been.
It
You know
has
how many times?
I'm not sure. There were a few years after it was passed that I know that it was charged a couple times each year.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about the details. I do know that they have charged it though.
Okay. Well, I thought this was interesting. They had the mayor of Mount Pleasant on an interview, and he said that Mount Pleasant has a state crime ordinance, as do 20 other municipalities in the state of South Carolina.
It's true.
And he said that with the state government, on some of these municipalities to cancel these hate crime ordinances, he said, if they come to us, we'll go back and tweak it again. We stand by our hate crime ordinance and stand by our communities. Who have been traditionally discriminated against and have been victims of hate. This was the mayor of Mount Pleasant. And Raymond Owens of local NBC did this report, and he also said, we have reached out to Mayor William Cogswell, and he has not responded to us.
Well, I'll say that I worked directly with Mayor Haney on that ordinance. It came about in the aftermath of an anti-Semitic
Right.
string of firings
Yes.
that neo-Nazis were perpetrating in Mount Pleasant, and he's been a big champion, and I've got to recognize that, and certainly the 20 other municipalities that took a brave step, but Charleston was the first, and I don't know if Mayor Cogswell is still around the corner there, but I before the mayor took office, he was a state representative, and he voted for this piece of legislation more than once. And upon running for mayor, we had some great conversations where he expressed deep support for state hate crime legislation. So I know that he'll support this recommendation that we make.
Okay, that's
and
good.
I hope.
I just went by this,
It's a different world today than it was 3 years ago, as we're about to talk about. But
Okay.
Just so you know.
Commissioners, any other comments before a vote? To request the city council to go on record in supporting passage of state legislation, hate crime legislation during the new session. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Stephen? Or you gonna vote on this one?
I'll abstain.
Okay. All right.
Chair?
Yes,
This is Carol. I have one other item that would correspond to First Amendment, under, not public safety, but under First Amendment.
go ahead.
And so I don't know if I was the only one on HARC who saw the October 26th news item in the Post and Courier that reporting that Mr. Pierre Manigault, who is the chairman of the Evening Post Publishing, which publishes the Post and Courier, had been named the 73rd president of the Inter-American Press Association. And I really read and soaked into excerpts from the acceptance speech that he gave that day. The paper, reported, but had him in quotes, that he was a stalwart in his call for unity among journalists in defending press freedom and First Amendment protections. And the actual quotes that they printed from Mr. Manigault, he said, "For the first time in modern U.S. history, freedom of the press and freedom of expression are under attack from the highest levels of government." Ultimately, Manigault said, "Our mission is clear and unwavering. We will defend the rights of citizens to be informed, because without a free press, there is no democracy." So on that basis of his declarations and his new office in a very prominent position in journalism, I ask that HARC recommend to the mayor that, and I don't know if the city council needs to be included, but to the mayor and the city council, that they have an official recognition of Mr. Manigault for this honor and for the statements that he made in accepting the honor. And hopefully that can be in a proclamation that they would schedule in the new year. I'm making that as a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Discussion for clarification? Seeing no hands, no one pressing their microphone. All those in favor of making that recommendation, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Stephen abstains. Okay.
Abstain.
Alan, make sure you print that in the article.
I believe at least one item that had been previously recommended that we've talked about on several occasions is support for the Hope Center for the unhoused services. I believe in Carol's memo there is a recommendation for a request for support services there to affirm that. Is there any discussion on that item?
Yes, I certainly would back all that we could do to support the Hope Center. I've talked to Latasha every now and again, and I know they're working around the clock to help people, help the homeless, and anything we could do to funnel more funds to them would be terrific.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor, and or Mr. Chairman. I remember that when Latasha represented the Hope Center at the homelessness issues panel that we hosted a few months ago, she made it clear to us that she had requested increased operating funds budget, operating funds within her general funds budget for for this coming year, and she wasn't awarded any increase in funds. And certainly the homeless population has increased. And so I do think that our recommendation should make it clear to the council that we want the Hope Center to be proportionately funded to keep up with the increase in their clientele and their mission. And I also think that we know that the mayor is still working on his rapid rehousing plan. However, it's going to unfold, which will be a whole series of one-time costs falling on the Hope Center. Hopefully she could actually increase the staff that would be working at such a new facility. So I think we should include that as a plan, part two of our recommendation, that the Hope Center be fully funded for operating and one-time expenses expected in 2026.
If I could just add something on a recent conversation I had with Latasha. I mean, the poor lady said, you know, we could use some bus tickets to help people get around. Or I think another thing, we could use some money to help pay for lunches. So I think the situation is desperate.
So as,
I'll just add that we had passed our budget last week. So, you know, for 2026, that's you know, it is what it is.
truly, but the resolution would suggest that the city do whatever it can to increase funding and support, as Carol Jackson has indicated, anticipated additional expenses for the expansion in new facility, but also current needs if possible. So even though the budget has been passed, I think the it at least being on record saying that support is there, and the council should pay some attention if they can find some additional resources if requested, is not necessarily inappropriate. But thanks for reminding us that we already have a budget for next year. Motion moved and properly seconded. Further discussion? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Any Stephen is abstaining,
Yeah.
as is customary in this situation. Okay, I apologize. At 6:02, I have to depart. I think we should move on to discussion about the omnibus ordinance. I'll make a statement and then duck out and turn the meeting over to Stephen. The ordinance that has been revised and that was circulated, I believe, and was passed today, does make some changes. One of the major changes is at the opening of the ordinance, the language that indicated that the purpose of the ordinance was to make sure there was compliance with state and federal law and executive orders. The term executive orders has been deleted from that draft. Substantially, as I have read it, the other change, well, they go through establishing, changing the minority small business to the small business enterprise and language associated with all that. And then it gets to HARC. It altered the statement of purpose that was originally generated somewhat, and then adds a substantial amount of language in areas of commission shall have the following duties articulated. Sections on organization substantially articulated. Administrative compliance and limitations is a new section that had not appeared previously. Is that a fair description, Stephen, of what's there, what's been done?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
Could I ask a question about that?
Yeah, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Stephen, and I apologize, guys. I have to depart to be recognized for work that's being undone today. So
Congratulations.
Mazel
we'll
tov.
talk to you later. Thank you.
Brandon, go ahead, and I'll just add that I really need to like cut this off at like 6:30, so that leaves us about 25 minutes. So everybody just kind of use your time wisely.
Quick question. Obviously, this has been covered in the press as having been a response to specific executive orders. And to my knowledge, there's no state or federal law that would require us to amend our ordinances in response to concerns about DEI. So was there discussion when the executive orders language was removed as to what this ordinance would then be a response to?
Well, we took that out because the city's not bound to follow an executive order, right? But the executive branch of the federal government is, and so they have been ordered to apply certain definitions to the way that they are interpreting federal anti-discrimination law, which is
Gotcha.
they're not new ideas. As far as I know, the federal government has never interpreted federal anti-discrimination law this way. It's not the current state of case law coming out of the federal courts. But having said that, if the people reviewing our grant applications are required to follow the laws or the legal interpretation that's being set out by the administration, and they are, we're going to get caught up in a very expensive battle that the city simply cannot afford to fight. I mean, there's the cost benefit here. We're looking at like $175 million in grants. So that's
Comment in perspective. There was no obligation of any of the states to comply with the drinking age of 21 under federal law. However, no state was to get any money from the feds if they didn't raise the drinking age for their interstate. So it's the power of the purse.
Gotcha.
yeah. And so I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. I can tell you that the governor's been pretty clear that he is going to push for the Senate to pass the DEI bill that came out of the South Carolina House last year. As Brandon mentioned, it's the same session, so they can just take it right up, and that the governor said he would sign it. So I fully expect that to become law very early in the session next year. So I think the state will make our obligations very clear. And this is an effort not only to comply with the grants that we are, basically give the certification that they're telling us we have to give, but also just go ahead and deal with what we know is coming from the state.
And these are grants that were already awarded, correct?
No, they're new ones that they're expecting to file in 2026.
So this is in
It's both.
anticipation.
It's both. So we
But-
are, yeah. So you have to certify on the front end when you apply for it, and whenever you receive money from it. So some of these you have to certify multiple times. The pressing one right now is a port security grant, which is it's quite a bit of money. I can't remember off the top of my head, but these things are gonna start happening pretty quickly if we don't if we choose to, get cute with the feds, about how we handle these things. And, I mean, it's going to go right to the core of the very most pressing issues in the city. I mean, affordable housing, flooding. I mean, if we press them on a port security grant, are they going to continue working with us on um, Army Corps of Engineers projects? I mean, that's the kind of, questions that that we've been having internally, and, that are, you know, create some pretty stark problems pretty quickly, if we don't do what unfortunately we have to do.
So, Mr. Chairman, Stephen Bowden, our council member liaison for HARC to the city council. I really appreciate your honesty and candor right now. Several of us attended in person the Community Development Committee of the council this afternoon. And, I think it was very poignant in my personal experience to listen to Councilmember Mitchell, who literally was presiding over his last CD committee meeting after serving our city in District 4 for 24 years. And he expressed, like I said, very poignantly, the rock and the hard place that the council, are putting themselves, but by needing to be responsive to this, threat is too strong a word, but it's a promise, basically. And one of the original whereas of the ordinance that Jerry calls the omnibus ordinance in front of us that we're part of makes it very clear that that it's to conform to any current or future conditions, requirements, or other contractual obligations. So we're expecting that there's going to be future requirements that Dudley Gregory, our council member, was very eloquent today, saying that he's in total disagreement that HARC, as we exist today, has ever operated, in violation of any current state and federal laws. But no one knows what the future is going to be, and that's what this whole thing is about. So I came tonight expecting, I am going to make a motion. I expected to preamble that motion with, sort of my own credentials for why I'm sitting here and why I feel empowered and emboldened to make this motion. I do have, as a white woman moving here from the north, just Northern Virginia, but the north nevertheless, and encountering a society like Charleston 1 week after the AME killings. I watched it in my little transition apartment before we moved into our permanent home, where I became a voting citizen of Charleston in July 1st of 2015, and went through the whole ebb and flow, and mostly it was an upward trajectory. I really felt very proud and humbled to be in our community for the next 10 years as we, took on the truth with the slavery apology. By then, I was privileged to vote for that slavery apology while serving on the city council. May 21st, whenever it was, May 31st, I was one of the city council members who went down on King Street and pushed a broom on broken glass that had been, scattered all over our downtown in reaction to in response to the George Floyd unrest, and then the violence that took place for that one brief moment that night. And as a result of that, the city council that I was serving on, we stood up the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation to take on the long-studied and very well documented and statistically prepared report by the Avery Center on the disparities that existed throughout Charleston County that were studied from 2000 to 2015 and then documented in this very thorough report. And the Special Commission's assignment was to basically review and study each one of those disparity topics and come up with recommendations that our city could be responsive to in trying to mitigate the clear gaps that those the disparity report had cataloged. It was a noble time to be part of that. And I'm privileged to have had that experience. And then we went on to establish on a first reading vote. By then I'd been not elected to a second term. So I was in the December 2021 group of council that gave first reading to the establishment ordinance of HARC that we exist within today. And so now here we are. And I really just, I've got just sort of three little, cutesy illustrations about where we are and what it looks like to me to be here. And basically, the first one comes out of my life in Washington, D.C., where the Washington Post would come out on New Year's Day every year with their annual feature called What's In and What's Out. And it was, a long list of cool things that were in and a long list of things that were no longer popular. My second analogy is, I feel like, at this moment in time, HARC is pretty much the runt of the litter, and the city is choosing to protect and nurture the rest of the pack that need to have the fostering and the nurturing, and that's where all this money is, going forward. We're not seeing this $170 million wasted. We're seeing it spent on good purpose that we all believe in as tax-paying citizens of this community. But HARC hasn't had a budget for 2 years. So what can we really accomplish without that kind of, at least authorization in the support? I mean, it's a clear fact. So we're the runt of the litter on that basis. And then my other last little illustration is from my own living room. We have a gas log fireplace that is fueled by an always-on pilot light that on a chilly morning, we use our remote to turn it up and the flame goes high, and then you can turn down the flame to a lower level. But if you turn it down too much, it goes out. There's no temperature control that says I want it at a very, low temperature. So I think we're that little flame. We've been turned down to an extent that we're going out. And I personally don't want to go through the process of watching HARC have to suffer through, the season that we're about to take shape in if we ask the council to just pass this ordinance as it's in front of them on Tuesday night. The purpose statement for our commission that would be in place if the council votes this ordinance in the fullness of what it is this commission is created by city council to promote fairness under the law in the city. For purpose of this ordinance, fairness is defined as impartial and just treatment or behavior, elimination and prevention of unlawful discrimination, and fostering mutual understanding and respect among all people in the city. I mean, really, do we need a fairness police as a commission to make sure that the citizens of our city treat each other fairly? I just, it's mind-boggling to me. And all of the other, activities, we have to be authorized by the mayor and council. They have to ask us to do something. And then the only thing we get to do is help the city staff engage the citizens. I really think that, it's on some level, it's a respectful act that they don't want to kill us outright. But I think that we should ask the council to do the honorable thing. It would be very easy for them to just repeal this whole section of the ordinance that begins with Division 11, goes through sections 206 through 212, and cut us out of the city establishment boards and commissions. That would be a very easy story for them to tell. Future regulators, future enforcers of their priorities that do not want anything smacking of equity, inclusion, and racial conciliation. So I hope that Councilmember Bowden can talk about the state legislature that is going to go to the Senate at the legislature level and be passed, lickety split. It's the anti-DEI law. It's not DEI law. It's doing away with the priorities that encourage the help for people who've always needed that leg up to get to the first rung of a ladder. That's what we've been established to do. I don't think the ordinance in front of the council tonight comes even close to achieving that mission. And so I would like to make a motion. Sorry, I just lost it.
Excuse me. Can,
Go ahead.
before you make a motion, can anybody else add to what you're saying or?
You can do it after I make my motion.
Okay, thank you.
In 10 minutes. So my motion is, I'm in personal agreement with City CFO and the Corporate Counsel's Office, having studied and documented advice to our city's mayor and council members. So I make the motion that our Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission vote to recommend to the City Council as a voting body that they vote on Tuesday, December 16th, in the majority to repeal in sum total the currently in effect Hark Establishment Ordinance and all of its sections of organization authorization commonly cited within Division 11, Sections 206 through 212. With the council majority vote to repeal Hark Establishment, Hark will essentially be decommissioned and unauthorized to operate beginning January 1, 2026, within the city's boards and commissions, recognized entities that work on behalf of the city. Upon majority approval for this Hark recommendation, included in this motion is the directive for our co-chairs to immediately notify the mayor and all council members of the Hark's repeal recommendation as an alternative action that they can insert at their meeting on December 16th, 2025. I ask that you join me in asking the council to repeal Hark and hope that we will live for another day in a different era of reasonableness.
All right, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
All right, Tom?
Well, what I want to say is, and I don't know if we want to vote first, but this that we were handed out is insulting. If the council, the mayor, had any concern or empathy on Section 11, we're handed this and everything is crossed out. What you, Stephen, your council members, the mayor should have done is gone over point by point by point why all this was crossed out. I find this insulting, the way this was handed to us, the way this is handed out to the public. And, you know, I'm a retired high school teacher. I gave my life to public education. I'm 75 years old. You might be able to tell I have a little fire left, but, you know, I find the council and the mayor and the way this operation is run insulting. So that's all I have.
Discussing?
Anybody else?
Yeah, you know, I wanted to acknowledge that I came onto Hark after the special commission and after the report that they created was not accepted by city council at the time. And I can tell you that we've done a lot of really great work, and I want to acknowledge that work. A lot of bridge building work. It's the work that I've devoted my adult and professional life to. And having said that, I want to say that I support this motion because this commission was created as a direct response to racial terror and a history of racial terror and violence in our city that is a stain on the history of our city. And I think rather than amend it to be something else, I think we should acknowledge that this commission is ending as a result of these new laws that are passing. And I support the creation of something different. And I would be willing and honored to help with whatever that is, as long as it involves building bridges between minority communities. I think it's incredibly ironic that we sit in the city of Charleston City Hall, where a block away, the Articles of Secession were signed, where the Revolutionary War was fought all around us as a rejection of authoritarianism from federal and state law, or federal law. And I think it's sad that we are rewriting our ordinances based on executive orders, and state laws that haven't passed yet, that surely will include grace periods for changing our ordinances. That being said, I understand that city council and the mayor are in an impossible position, but we cannot allow ourselves to be constrained by the limitations that we faced before, the ones that we face now. We have been able to make progress. It's evident, and we will make more progress in the future. And considering that racial disparities unquestionably continue to exist in our city, and that we have a responsibility to our neighbors to address those racial disparities, I hope we can find another way to continue to make progress. But I will be voting in support of the motion tonight.
All right. Does anybody else want to be heard on this before we vote?
Yeah, Stephen, this is Carol Fry. I just want to commend the mayor and the city council for difficult work that they had to do. I mean, I think you're facing reality of what has to happen, and if you do certain things, then it will ward off other things happening. I don't think any of us are wanting to be in the place where we are, but the reality of it is that we are here, and I want to commend the mayor and the council. You've been working on this a long time, and it's certainly not ideal, but this commission has done good work. And to me, I know we talked about this back in May, and it was obvious then that most people did not want the name to change, and so we're finally here where we are. But I believe that we should be continuing the work and doing the good work that has been done and continues to need to be done. So it's tough place, but we need to do what's best for the citizens of Charleston.
Thank you, Carol. All right. Anybody else want to be heard before we?
Bob, I'd just say, I think we're better off having a venue as opposed to not having a venue. I think, to quote Carol's allusion earlier, the fire in the fireplace may go higher and lower, but you've got to have a pilot light there to reignite it. And I think we've done a lot of great things here. And it's an old adage, it's amazing what you can get done if you don't care who gets the credit. I'm for getting things done, and I don't care who gets the credit, and I don't care what the name is, and I am not going to support this.
All right. Anybody else?
Can I just answer? I really appreciate Bob and Carol's, dedication to wanting to see the work continue. I guess my only point about this is where in this authorizing ordinance that the council will be voting on, does it give us any opportunity to do the kind of work that we've even done in the last 2 years without a budget? I would be very interested in hearing it's not just a name change.
Yeah.
It's a whole set of practices and objectives and duties and all of that are no longer in existence. So the way I read the ordinance in front of the council right now is that we will be waiting to be directed by the mayor and the council. I don't think that is going to happen. And
Well,
so that's why I'm.
And Carol, I think also it's notable that it's a strike and replace. It's a strike and replace. There's almost no piece of
No,
the original
there's
duties and
nothing
responsibilities.
of what we had.
So in
We-
essence, the commission is being eliminated, regardless of
Right.
whether there's another commission added to end of the ordinance or not. It's
That's
different,
the way I'm seeing
a
it.
different
So
commission.
I know we have to go, but I do think, if you have some things that you can hang your hat on as you volunteer to go on to keep the commission, I agree the pilot light will stay on. But I think the pilot light is our community. I think, we didn't get here because we didn't have community support and community voice asking for this kind of body for the community to be heard on civil rights and human rights. And so I think that pilot light will stay. And I personally plan to pour myself into the next generation that I'm hoping and praying will keep that pilot light and fire it up at the first opportunity.
All right.
Um,
Sorry to,
I have one other thing to say, that hasn't been said, and that is to, publicly thank Jerry Harris, our, fearless leader.
Yes.
What an amazing man he is, what an amazing leader he is. And right by his side is Carol Jackson, Bonnie, and all of you. We've put a lot of heart into this commission, and I'm very proud to be associated with all of you.
Same. And thank you to Adrian and the city professionals that
Yes.
made all of our work possible.
Adrian, Jasmine.
agreed. Well, couldn't agree more with all that, and thank you for saying it. I know there's kind of some heavy hearts here, and I think we could go on all night. Unfortunately, I do have to cut us short, but let's call the question. All in favor of Carol's motion, say aye.
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 All right, all opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, and then I will abstain. So the motion passes. Right, yeah, motion passes. Well, thanks everybody. Good discussions tonight. I feel confident there'll be more good discussions on this issue at City Council on Tuesday. Thank you all for your dedication to making the city the best place it can be.
So, Mr. Co-Chair, since you're the only co-chair here, can you then make it clear that part of the motion was to send the Hark's letter recommendation directly to the mayor and the council tomorrow, because they need time to chew on it and incorporate it into whatever vote they're going to take on Tuesday?
Yes, we can
Okay.
we can make sure that will be done.
Thank you.
All right. Well, by acclamation, we stand adjourned.
Looking
Everybody take care.